I couldn't agree more with Stefan that it's all about blockchain and BIMscript. We're 6 decades into the revolution of the computer, 4 decades into the invention of the microprocessor, and 2 decades into the internet and the way that it works today. I think I can speak for most people in here today that I definitely knew what I was doing 20 years ago, and I'm sure you do as well. The way that it's changed the way that we live, the way that we communicate with each other, the way that we do business, the way that we look at videos or films, the way that we, in general, just do things differently is incredible. The BIMobject ecosystem is also disrupting the way that you're doing business and the way that we're doing business as well. And that's what I'm here to talk about today. As Stefan mentioned, I'll be talking a lot about API, the business opportunities that it's giving us and for you. I'll be talking about BIM supply, going into a lot more detail, and I'll be talking about BAM as well. So last year we released our very first public API, and that gave you, as a manufacturer, the opportunity to be able to actually leverage the full power of the BIMobject platform and take your content and integrate it onto your own website, for example. There was other channeling opportunities as well, which I'll go in and explain about in a moment. I'm very happy and excited to be able to talk about the next phase of the public API, and that's our administration API. Basically what that does, it allows you to send data from within your back office system directly to the BIMobject platform. So that means that we can short-circuit the traditional way of sending information to each other and receiving information. But before I get into that, and again, as Stefan said, and unfortunately we live in a world of acronyms. So I'm going to be talking about API, BAM, BIM, and all of these other things. So what is an API? It's an application programming interface. So in its most simplest form, it's machine-to-machine language. One machine has a service, or it provides multiple services, and there's another machine that asks that machine to provide that service. So one of those services could be product data, a product data URL, a product image. It could be height, width, depth. It could really be anything. And that other computer sends that request, and the other one presents it in a web browser, in an app, in a web app, or in a BIM system as well. And I'll exemplify that more in a moment. Another acronym, PIM, or Product Information Management. So the very first application to use the BIMobject Administrative API is PIM. So PIM is basically an information management system for you where you need to sell products to multiple channels. So it's a centralized information repository for you where you can send that out to print, where you can send that out to different websites, maybe PDFs, or it can be sent out to ERP systems as well. So again, this is allowing you as our customers to send information from your back office system directly to the BIMobject platform. The BIMobject administration, or the CMS part of our platform, gives you a beautiful graphical interface. Now this allows you to create product pages. We have some great tools like bulk product page creation. We have some maintenance tools and the like. We'll continue to develop those for you. The new part of the BIMobject public API is a complement to the existing way of working. So it will not replace the way that you work today. It's a complement for what we're doing. In early spring 2018, we press release together with InRiver and Every on our intentions to connect a PIM system called InRiver with our infrastructure. Every has created a connector, so now we have a direct connection with InRiver and the BIMobject platform. So basically what that means is that we can use that in a very early phase. You can push your information to us from InRiver, and that can be used in the content creation process. And that can be pushed out later on as well once that content creation process is finished. So it's giving you a lot of business opportunity now. So that means that you can speed up your go-to-market strategy around your content as well. So that means pushing that information to us, we can get that out a lot faster for you, and we can do that a lot quicker. So it gives you a lot more business opportunity around getting your entire product portfolio onto the BIMobject platform. So the in-river connector that has been done, it gives you the opportunity to push that information directly to us. Via the in-river connector. That means that you have the opportunity to be able to maintain your data, and it's easier for you to have control over that whole process. So once the process has been initially set up, we can go in and automate that process as well. And it takes away all of the human error that's around creating that information and sending it backwards and forwards in a traditional way. So one of the typical user inputs here could be that from a PIM system or from your back office system, the user will choose products from their portfolio, and then they can prepare that information to be sent to BIMobject. Now, obviously, if you already have that information in your PIM system, you don't need to do a lot of preparation work. You can pretty much basically just send that to us. Once all of those products have been prepared, via the BIMobject public API, we can then go ahead and send that information directly to the BIMobject platform. And then finally, your entire product catalog available on BIMobject.com. And again, you have full control over that whole process. Once your data and your files are on BIMobject.com, you need to get that data to start working for you. So you need to start pushing that out into multiple channels. And I'd like to introduce you or reintroduce you to the RetailX brand. Now, RetailX obviously doesn't exist. It's a way for us to exemplify how we can take that data and push it out to an e-commerce platform, for example. So again, RetailX is a multi-brand retail webshop, and they want to produce digital catalogs based on information from BIMobject.com. But they also want to attract design professionals. And let me tell you what I mean. So what you're seeing here are thumbnails and product information that are coming via the BIMobject public API directly to this e-commerce platform, which is really interesting. And as I mentioned earlier, with the API, there's services. So one of those services that we provide in our API is a searching functionality. And obviously, design professionals are used to searching in a specific way. So this particular web app is asking the BIMobject platform, hey, give me that searching functionality so I can present that in my web app. And that's exactly what's happening here. So in this case, this design professional, let's pretend it's an architect or an interior designer, is searching for sofas. And they've initiated that search. We're returning back that search, and they've found this particular product. Now, this is where things start to get really interesting. Not only is the designer able to download a BIM object, because the CEO of RetailX is a really smart guy, he wants to embellish his e-commerce platform with the downloadable file. So not only can the designer download that file, they can also purchase it, which gives you as a manufacturer a whole new world of opportunity around that business, around pushing your information. And don't forget, going back from a PIM system or a back office management system, you have control over that whole flow. And you'll see later on when we get into the BIM supply platform why that's important, especially when we get into facility management and operations. Super, super important. So once the designer has decided, yeah, I like this and I want to purchase this, then that part of it has nothing else to do with BIMobject. That goes into the RetailX own e-commerce platform or their own web shop. Again, the CEO of RetailX is a smart guy. He wants to make a lot of money. You know, he sees a lot of business opportunity around building really nice product catalogs and embellishing his e-commerce website with information from BIMobject. So he wants to have multiple brands, which he can also do. So we can feed all of that information into that particular RetailX e-commerce platform. So again, giving you a lot of new business opportunity. Last year, we released a brand new version of BIM Supply. And obviously, over the last 12 months, we've been doing a lot of work on it, a lot of really exciting work. More on that in a moment. But first of all, I'd like to kind of give you a recap of what BIM Supply is and the challenges that it's solving for the industry. BIM Supply lets you create an unbroken information flow from the configured components inside of a BIM model all the way out to the manufacturer who is responsible for that content. And I'll explain what I mean. So obviously it's all about communicating in a three-dimensional environment, and it's all about an online bill of materials. But first, why BIM Supply? We're past the first 7 years of BIMobject, as Stefan said. Based on our predictions, we will surpass 1 million registered design professionals. We have 50,000 or over 50,000 BIM components, which gives us roughly 57 million individual SKUs. And I'd just like to stop here and digress for one moment. Some of you out here may be wondering why our number of SKUs has increased or almost doubled over such a short period of time. As Stefan mentioned earlier and demonstrated, BIM objects are extremely parametric and extremely intelligent, and that's one of our challenges as well. So we've changed our algorithms on the way that we look at BIM objects. We're looking more at fabrication information rather than just actually what the BIM object can do, which gives us a lot of more SKUs. And we've also updated our publication and our content creation processes. So that's why you've seen such a big increase over a very short period. So back to BIM Supply. We have the momentum to take the digital product catalogs that we have on BIMobject and give you as a building product manufacturer access to projects and project information. BIM Supply gives the whole construction community the potential for a whole new way to bid, to buy, to tender, and to order. For the first time, you as a building product manufacturer are able to engage yourself in the digital decision process. In other words, the BIM model, which is really, really exciting. BIM Supply also allows you as a manufacturer to see how your product is being configured in the context of the actual design. So that means we're taking away all of the guesswork. You can actually start working on upselling or product support or other value-add services that you may want to provide around that particular model. You're also able to see where the project is, which is also unique. It means that you're able to win and secure more business because you are working directly with the influencers of the project. So again, let's go and have a look at one of the many industry problems that BIM Supply is solving. Let's have a look at a traditional process. So what you're seeing here now is, probably from where you're sitting, doesn't look very clear. But it's a window schedule. And let's zoom in and have a look at it. Now, there's obviously a lot of problems here. Number one is that there's a huge disconnect. So after talking with a lot of our customers, we found, and like Stefan mentioned in his presentation, that there's a lot of fragmented information silos in the construction industry. And this is a perfect example of one of them. So it's not connected to a model, it's not connected to a BIM model, it's a paper drawing. So if we look into the future, we're going to be working a lot more with AI and deep learning. With this being so disconnected, there's no way that we can give user experiences back based on what they're searching for or what the requirements of a particular window is. So getting back to this particular drawing, you need domain-specific knowledge to actually know what you're looking at here. And this is one of the big issues that we're solving with BIM Supply, because we're showing all of this in context, and I'll exemplify that in a moment for you. So pretty much this window schedule doesn't say a lot for someone that's kind of into procurement, for example. Someone that's going and actually purchasing this, how do they know what they're purchasing? And again, there's a huge disconnect. So we don't know where in the project this window is to be delivered, so we can't give the best price based on where's the location of the building. Maybe we have a factory that's closer to where I'm actually sitting. And all these type of informations that we can actually provide if we had a BIM model. We've taken away the need for a BIM system. So now lists and spaces are the same web application. So basically what that means for you and for users of the BIM Supply platform is that they can take a Revit model and simply drag it and drop it onto the BIM Supply platform and start creating lists and bill of materials. And for now, BIM Supply is free of charge. We've changed the way that you can list projects as well. So we have private. So obviously private means that it's directly connected to the Hercules platform. So you have to be invited to that specific project to be able to view it. Unlisted, you need the URL to gain access to it. But if you have that URL, you have full access to it. Or if it's open, so that means you have open access for everyone. So having the different listing types on the BIM Supply platform gives you full control over who and what you share around the project. So let's have a look at how we create a project here. So once you have a registration on BIMobject.com, you have access to the Supply platform. It's very simple. You simply drag and drop or browse, in this case for a Revit file. We've changed a bit of the background processes here, so you can actually go and do something else and the process won't be broken because it's a background process. So you can come back later on and you'll receive a notification once that's been translated. Now the translation part of it, as most of you know, we're using the Autodesk Forge platform for that translation. So once that's done, you can go in and create that project. So the project information that you're seeing here is actually being extracted directly from the Revit model. If that project information isn't available, we're giving you the ability to fill that in here as well. And we have the 3 different listing types that you will find available here as well. So it's a very, very simple and quick process. So how do we view a project? So once that project has been created, we simply click on the project in the platform. And you'll see the dashboard here, and it's giving you an overview of basic project information, how many BIM objects there are in it, and we have a Google Map view of over where the project is as well. And what you're seeing here now is that we have 5 predefined templates, and you can create your own as well, and we'll keep adding more as we go along. By simply choosing one of these templates, we're giving you a list of objects, and there's a direct connection back to the model as well. So if we go back to the paper example that I gave a moment ago, was totally disconnected. This is all in context. So you see exactly what object is, where it is in the model, and we're also giving you a perfect example here of the BIMobject public API. So this is a brand new view that you're seeing in the middle, and this is where we're growing our ecosystem. So our 2 platforms, BIMobject and BIM Supply, are connected by the public API. So that pane in the middle is product information that's being read directly from the BIMobject platform, which is totally brand new. So how do we create our own templates? So as I mentioned earlier, we have 5 predefined templates, but you have the ability to create your own. And in this example, we want to create a window schedule. So going back to the example that I used earlier, we have all of the different properties that are available within the context of the model. So you can go and search, you can go and filter. You can do it on a project level, or again, as we're showing here, we can do it on a specific domain level. So in this case, Windows. And I can just pick and choose. Once I've finished that, I can go and save it. And we can see here that there's a couple of properties that I probably don't want here. It's a very simple process to go back and edit. It's not a problem. Save that, and we can see here again, we can go and start clicking on things. We have the nice tools where we can explode, as you saw earlier. We can have some nice 3D sectioning and 2D sectioning as well. And again, it's all in context. So there's no disconnect. You see all of the information, and you see the 3D view as well. We have some other settings here where you can go and have a thumbnail view of the project. You can go and have a look at where it is, the location of it. And as I mentioned earlier, you have the ability to go and change the project information as well, if that's missing. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the BIM Supply platform is a collaborative platform. So I can either invite people in on a global level so they can view or edit the project on a global level. Or you can see here the window list that was created earlier. We can go and invite manufacturers to that specific list and start collaborating on a list level. So we can start working with pricing and we can start discussing actual product support questions and things like that. So it gives you a totally new insight to the whole process. Gives you brand new business opportunities in the whole construction process. As Stefan showed earlier, he's the CEO, obviously. He stole my thunder. We were, up until now, I've been talking about new buildings. And as Stefan mentioned, there's 1 billion existing buildings. And the way that we've been working with the buildings and on the BIM Supply platform is based on a Revit BIM file. And it's very simple, you can just simply drag and drop and create bill of materials. Really nice. And as Stefan showed in his example, and you'll be here tomorrow, this is HQ, just down the road here. This building is only 2 years old, so it was built with kind of BIM processes, but there's a BIM model anyway. And we've thrown it up onto our 9th floor up onto the supply platform. But again, what about existing buildings? Michael will talk a little bit more about the existing buildings and what the digital buildings guys are doing. But I want to show what's coming in the very near future on the supply platform. 3D scanning is part of the BIMobject ecosystem. Matterport just happens to be one of those scanning devices that we use. So what is a Matterport? So this image, it's a 3D scanning and reality capture device. And again, I want to thank the guys that are sitting out here with not with these shirts on, not the business guys, but our developers for the massive amount of work that they've been putting in over the last year, especially on the supply platform. So not only have we been doing new development that I've just exemplified, but we've also been doing a lot of R&D work. And it's been producing some really interesting results. So I want to go into a little bit more detail of the example that Stefan showed earlier. Matterport has a platform where you can bring in that 3D scan. And we have the ability to start doing some really interesting things. So we can start tagging specific objects in the context of the 3D scan. So we went through the 9th floor at our HQ and we had a look at the different objects on the BIM Supply platform that have actually been sourced and installed on the 9th floor. So you can see here that we've done some tagging, and via the Matterport API, we're actually able to extract that information out of those tags. Now, the information that was contained in those tags was a link back to that specific product page on BIMobject. So that means all of a sudden we're opening up a massive amount of new business opportunities for you. We're able to create a bill of materials based on the 3D scan. But not only that, we're able to create a product inventory based on the 3D scan as well. So going into facilities and operations management. So coming back to, the first part of my presentation about that information flow, why it's so important. It has to be continual, it has to be updated. Even if you have something that you sunset, so a product that's not into production anymore, we don't want to delete that, and we'll never delete it. We'll put it into an archive mode, but as long as you have that link, you'll always be able to find it, even when the building's 100, 200, 300 years old. BIM Supply will have an API. So what does it mean for you? It means that you'll gain access to the BIM Supply projects, project information. We'll give you access to the 3D viewer. That means that you'll be able to start doing integrations with ordering systems, the supply chain and their pricing. Again, you'll have access to the 3D viewer. You'll be able to read and write to other databases. And the BIM Supply tool it will take us to the marketplace. So as Stefan mentioned, yes, we'll probably have integrations with Amazon, with Alibaba, you can have integrations with your own e-commerce platforms, or maybe even your own factory. A little bit of food for thought. In a construction process, if we look at a design process, as Stefan mentioned, there's a lot of studies out there that tell us that that process or those models get flattened around 7 times. So there's a false sense of security that if someone builds an informational-rich BIM model, that they're going to mitigate risk by flattening it out and sending a 2D drawing to someone else, when in fact they're actually increasing risk. They're increasing risk by making a lot of guesswork. So what happens, so the next consultant, they'll do the same thing. They'll build up a nice model so they can do all of their calculations. They'll flatten it out and send it to the next one. So if we look at the whole process, so if we have a look at everyone that's involved, the supply chain, retailers, everyone else that's around that particular project, it's broken probably around 50 times, as Stefan mentioned. And we need to stop working in that way because it's not economically or environmentally sustainable. So our vision for BAM is a blockchain to remove papers, to remove napkins, and to remove faxes and the guesswork. So what drives BAM? BIMscript. BIMscript is one of the windows into the BIMobject ecosystem. And again, Emma will talk a little bit more about that later on. So putting together, as Stefan showed in his presentation, putting together a design in VR has never been easier with the BIMobject VR app. We've built a direct integration with the BIMobject platform, so users can start sourcing content. They can consume content within the context of the VR app. They can place things out, and they can iterate with their designs. So it's really cool. Now, just imagine digital twins based on 3D scans, as Stefan showed in his presentation. We can bring those 3D scans into the context of the VR app, and we can start populating them with objects from BIMobject. And then we can send that up to the supply platform. Crowd and cloud-based platforms like BIMobject, Hercules, and BIM Supply will enable easy access to the digital twin. You already have the ability to populate them with BIM objects, and you can change materials. As Stefan showed, that we've cracked that code now, which is based on BIMscript, which is really, really interesting. So the dream has always been to be able to collaborate with multiple platforms and have that unbroken information flow. You're probably thinking, but why did we develop BAM? There's a lot of different reasons why we developed BAM. It's the blockchain aspect of it. But if you have a look up until now, there's never been an intelligent way for multiple devices, for multiple platforms, to be able to communicate with each other in the BIM process. So a HoloLens, an HTC Vive, or any other device for that matter, there's never been an intelligent way for them to communicate in the BIM process. Now, I'm not talking about converting anything at all. We're not converting anything. We're using native object. BAM has streaming. So we're streaming that content within the context of that system or of that hardware device. So again, the beauty about BAM is that it has object streaming. Now, a BAM doesn't contain any native 3D geometry in its file structure. That's why it's so lightweight. It links back to the platform, so back to our ecosystem, back to BIMobject. So a model can be generated without any data loss whatsoever. And I'll exemplify that in a moment. But first, I'd like to give you a typical design process using BAM. So let's say a Revit user builds a kitchen. And you can see there's a little key here. So this is where the whole Hyperledger fabric and blockchain comes into the picture. They then send that BAM key, which is extremely small. Again, we're talking kilobytes. And it can be read from the Hyperledger. So they send that to someone that's using a VR app. We stream that content into the context of the VR app so they can go back and start iterating. They can do their design. And then they can send that to an ArchiCAD user. And then they can send that back to the VR app or to the consumer. They can get validation that can be validated, and then it can go back to the design professional, so then they can start polishing that particular design. So let's have a look at how BAM can take you from an idea, from nothing, all the way to fabrication. So again, the window into, or one of the windows into the BIMobject ecosystem is BIMscript. It's simple. You create that content, it goes up to the BIMobject cloud, it goes to our community, people can start designing with it, start specifying it. So let's have a look at a Revit user, and we can base this on, let's say, a kitchen design. So they'll start consuming those kitchen objects, they'll do a design, they send it back up to the BIMobject ecosystem via a BAM. That will go to a VR user who's consuming that particular data. Now, we're not converting anything, we're streaming it. They can go and iterate, they send that BAM, and in that BAM it contains information about transformation, so X, Y, Z, and any other type of parametric or metadata change is stored in that BAM file. Now, what we can then do is that once that's been iterated and that's been accepted, we can send it off to the BIM Supply platform. And yes, BIM Supply will have support for BAM in the future, which makes it really, really interesting. So once that goes to the supply platform, then we can start working with ordering and procurement. And what we could even do is we could even start looking for factories that can manufacture that around us. And that can go out to the factory, so the factory can take that BAM file, they can consume it within the context of their CNC machines, and it can be sent out all the way down to the person that's actually ordered it. Or it can be done for it can be used for just-in-time deliveries out onto the building site as well. So it's really, really exciting, and we have a lot of opportunities together to really leverage BAM and to really get this out and take away the need for drawings. How does the blockchain fit into this whole process? Now, I'm going to do my best to explain it. It's quite technically difficult and complex, but I'm going to do my best to boil this down and make it as easy as possible. So a project is initiated, and the first block is created, which is more often referred to as the Genesis block. So in this case, it's Revit that started the Genesis block. The next transaction in the project is created. Now that's gone to another system, in this case ArchiCAD, creating a new block, and so on, and so on, and so on. So we go to SketchUp, we go to a VR app, then we go back to Revit. And that's iterated, and it keeps going on and on and on. And what's really important to note is that each block is connected to the block before and after it. Transactions are blocked together, creating an transactional and irreversible information flow. It's creating a blockchain. And then finally to BIM Supply all the way out to fabrication. BAM creates trust, transparency, ownership, and full control. I just like to quickly show the common user interface that we have for the different systems. So one of our go-to-market strategies with BAM is via our integrated apps. So this is available for the integrated Revit app, and this is what it looks like. So this is part of the blockchain, so this is the project. And we have the transactional view here, so we can go in and have a look at each individual transaction and see what's transpired in that transaction. We can have a look at the user interface in the context of ArchiCAD in this case. And it's the same there as well. So you have a list of all of the transactions that have happened. Now, this is not available for everyone. It's only available for the people that have been invited to this project, which is important to note. So BAM together with blockchain creates trust, transparency, and above all, an unbroken information workflow from manufacturing or even sourcing. The BIMobject ecosystem is making the online to offline possible. Thank you very much.